Hello and welcome to my tutorial. Today's tutorial I'll be speaking to you about Adobe Photoshop. One of the first things you should identify before starting in Adobe Photoshop is what is Adobe Photoshop. Adobe Photoshop is a graphics editing program. It is the leading program on the market for image manipulation. It is considered by pretty much everyone in the industry as the industry standard for graphics professionals. So anybody out there in computer graphics classes that want to work for a photographer or anything to do with photos or create graphics, this is a great program to know. You'll have to know it. It's required in every college course you go into for computer graphics. So it's, like I said, very, very good to know. So this tutorial that I'll be doing today is going to be aimed at beginners just learning the program. So any first timers in school just using this program and not paying attention, this is for you. Okay, so let me start. One of the most important things in Photoshop that you'll ever need to know is the layers palette, and that is where my mouse is circling right now. Now the layers palette, or what is known as the layer, is the bread and butter of Photoshop. It's innovative. Adobe did a great thing by creating the layers palette. So every single piece of work you do in this program will require the layers palette. The best way to describe what a layer is was put to me by one of my teachers, and he said that a layer is basically an invisible sheet of paper that you put over the original image, and you work on that invisible piece of paper because you never want to work on the original image. Let me say that again. You never want to work on the original image. So, like I said, one of the greatest perks of layers is that you get to work in segments. And so that's pretty much meaning, say you're doing a painting or drawing in Photoshop, and you got on one layer is the left arm, on the other layers you got the right arm, left leg, right leg, etc., etc. Say you mess up on the left leg, instead of having to delete the whole picture, you can just go to that layer with the leg, you can delete the layer, you can fix the layer. There's many ways you can work around all that. So that's pretty much an explanation of what a layer is and what it can do and why they're so important. So here's how you actually work with some layers. So here's my image that I decided to use. It's a landscape I found online somewhere. So if you own it, I'm sorry. Okay, so if you go down to the bottom here, you see a row of icons. The second one from the right it looks like it's a folded piece. It's a piece of paper with a folded corner. That is the create new layer icon. If you click that, you see here you get a new layer. So imagine that as a blank piece of paper that is see-through going over the top of this original image. If you want, you can just double click on layer 1 and you can rename it. So we'll name it, bleh. There you go. So now that blank piece of paper is now on top of the background. So now say I select my paintbrush, got a big brush here, I just paint over. So yeah, it looks like it's on top of my original image, but if I turn off my layer, it is not on my image. See? Layer is very important. So let me just... Okay, see? Now the next icon at the bottom next to the create new layer is the group icon. See, if you click on that, it creates a group. Now, a group is basically a subfolder you can use in order to store if you have a lot of layers for a certain part of your image. If you're working on a person's eye and you got 15 different layers while working on the eye, if you got too many layers, you create a group. You can put all those layers into that group. So that's pretty good thing if you're into organization and you want to know where everything is on your layers palette. So after the groups icon, you have the adjustment layers, or they're called fill adjustment layers. Now these are a whole different ball game. I'll talk about these at a later date, at a different tutorial. These can do a lot of great things. You use these in order to touch up pictures. If you have a black and white picture and it looks cloudy, you can make it not look cloudy. You can do a lot of things with these adjustment layers. Now, After that, you have, it looks like a square with a white circle. This is the layer mask tool. Now, the layer mask tool is probably it's a very great tool to have. See, now I'm going to draw this on top of that. Now I choose my layer that I just drew that on, and if I click on the layer mask tool, the colors down here turn to black and white. If I hit X, black will come on top. It'll toggle. So choose black and white, and the brush, and you'll need the brush tool in order to use the layer mask tool. So if you take the layer mask tool, and notice that the layer mask is like a white sheet of paper, and black shows up on white. So imagine it like that. If you take the black and you paint it on top like that, it'll start taking away from your whatever you did to your image. See, like that. Now, say you switch to white, and you see on the layer mask here, you can see the black that you painted on. Now, if you take that white and you start going over, it'll bring it back, just like that. See, and then you look over here, and that black is starting to disappear that you had worked on. See? Now, the layer mask is, you always want to use the layer mask over the eraser tool, and let me tell you why. You never want to use the eraser tool, alright? Because if you use the eraser tool, you are basically getting rid of whatever you're erasing, and you'll never get it back. If you erase something and you save, and say you come back a week later and you were like, oh man, I wish I had that piece of my picture back, you can't get it back anymore because the erase tool got rid of it and you saved. But if you have the layer mask and you have that section missing, all you gotta do is go to your layer mask, switch it to white, and just paint over where you got rid of, and it brings it all back for you. So always use the layer mask over the erase tool. Alright, so let me get rid of my layer mask. Don't need it anymore. I don't need that layer anymore either. Create a new one. Okay. So after the layer mask tool, you have this FX icon, and the FX icon is the blending options, where you have your drop shadow, inner shadow, outer glow, inner glow, all that. So if you click on this top one, this blending options option here, it'll open up a dialog box you can mess around in, and so you got drop shadow, inner shadow. So you choose drop shadow, and just play around with the controls, and you see you got the drop shadow appearing. That's what that is, and you can just mess around with all these. Let's see, hit OK. See, and under here, under your layer, it'll tell you what effects you chose for that layer. See, so this layer has a drop shadow attached to it. So anything I do in this layer should have a drop shadow. See, that has a drop shadow. And this, the blending options will also work on text. Anything you pretty much put into a layer of its own will have blending options work on it. So let's delete that. We don't want that anymore. It's useless to us. Okay. Alright, so that is basically it for the layers. There's more you could do with layers. I'll talk about more on some things you could do with layers at a later date, but that's the basics that you should know about layers. But so, oh yeah, never mind. Let me go back one more thing. So you got 3 layers here. You got blue. You got second layer. You got green. That's not green. Okay, let's try that again. Alright, we'll do teal. Choose a second layer. Okay, now you got teal, then you got your third layer. Alright, let's just do some white. Okay, so you can rearrange the order of these layers. So say you want this blue on top of the white and teal. You just move it up on top and see it comes above those two colors. So move it down, it goes in between them like that. So that's another thing you should know about layers. You can rearrange them how you want. The one that's on top will be the one that you could see first. So if you're adding something to a picture and you want it to be behind, you probably want that layer behind whatever you're trying to put on the picture. So let me get rid of them now. I could just right click and delete layer. Yes. And yes. Okay, so like I said, you never want to work on your original